Van continued slaying monsters, determined to buff his blessings in order to kill Rudy, thinking that he would only become the true hero after accomplishing this. Red gathered everyone in order to plan how to deal with Van. Albert explained that Esta warned him about Van's imminent return to Zoltan, as he had gained confidence after slaying monsters in the southern seas, and he was even declaring he would kill Rudy with a smile on his face, so Tis thought he was creepy. Danon wanted to beat up Van after hearing everything, but Yurandrala and Red agreed that it was better to drive him out of Zoltan without fighting. After taking out the portraits drawn by Tis, the group started discussing Van's party. Albert explained that although Van was the 8th prince of the Flamberge kingdom, he was raised in a monastery, as some royal and noble families see raising their own children as a shame. Rit had also heard about it, but she declared that she and Red would raise their kids with love, and Rudy was glad to hear it. Meanwhile, Tis concluded that Van's zeal was because of his upbringing. Red agreed, and he added that Van arrived at the Great Last Wall proclaiming himself as a hero, and the church recognized him as such. After this, he spent all his time hunting monsters to raise his blessings level. Yurandrala thought it was the biggest issue, despite the hero's blessing not allowing one to abandon their comrades. Van still believed that developing his blessing comes before saving his comrades. Danon got more pissed the more he heard about Van. He believed that Van wasn't fit to be a hero at all, while Rit couldn't understand him at all. Rudy explained that in Van's world, all that existed was the Almighty, and him alone, and it allowed him to trust his beliefs unconditionally, without wavering or losing heart. They started discussing Lavender next, and although Mistrom couldn't recognize her new appearance, she knew Lavender was the dark shadow who could control lightning that she had met in the past. And she's not someone Mistrom could fight in her current state, so she asked Rit and Yurandrala to handle her. Yurandrala thought that fighting Lavender would cause too much collateral damage, but she also didn't know how to talk her down. However, Rit declared that she would talk to her, and despite everyone's concern, she was certain that she was the best for the job, as they were both in love. Everyone was confused by her reason, but Rit thought she could use this similarity to negotiate. Red didn't oppose this, but he asked Danon to accompany her, as he would be handling Lubo with Yurandrala. Albert explained that Lubo was a former peasant who made a name for himself by relying on his cardinal blessing. But he was ruthless when sating his desires, not hesitant to rely on bribes and embezzlements. And although Lubo knew Red's identity, he thought disguising himself would be enough, and he also asked Rudy to completely hide her identity with Tis's help. The group was determined to protect Rudy and Zoltan. Rudy thanked everyone before their meeting was concluded. While making the necessary preparations, Red noticed that Tis was sitting alone outside while in deep thought. He asked what was wrong, and Tis explained that she didn't know what she could do before Van's return to Zoltan. She knew it would be difficult to kill him after witnessing his strength and personality. She also asked why Rudy and Van were so different, despite having the same hero blessing. Red thought it was because of their different mindsets, as Rudy was an indomitable hero who would not succumb to any foe she came up against, while Van was trying to be an invincible hero who didn't care about his foes and was solely focused on winning. And between Rudy, who's prepared to fight any opponent, and Van, who doesn't care at all, they agreed they wouldn't choose Van's approach, and Tis was certain that if she also relied on her surefire techniques similar to Van's, it would lead to her defeat. Red concluded that Van relied on his blessings alone, while Rudy was more than her blessings. Tis thought it was thanks to him guiding Rudy, although Red stated that he just wanted to make sure that Rudy would learn how to protect herself. Tis was glad that Rudy had him around, and she thought Van didn't have someone like him. She also felt better after understanding the difference between Rudy and Van. Meanwhile, Van's party had arrived in Zoltan. Esta tried to convince Lubo that it wasn't worth risking Van's life in a place like Zoltan. However, Lubo thought they needed information, and he asked Esta to investigate the girl who had beat up Van. Lavender didn't say anything, but she was watching Esta's actions. Gallatin and the mayor were stressed by Van's return, but Mistrom convinced them to leave everything to Red's group, and they agreed that it was the best option. Esta introduced Albert to Van and the others, and he asked how their trip was using the airship. Van was satisfied after slaying some monsters to level his blessings, so Lavender declared that he would beat Rudy this time. However, Van was fuming after recalling his defeat, and he was determined to find and beat Rudy right away. But Lubo stopped him, and he decided that they would gather some information first. While trying to cheer Van up, Lavender noticed Rit and Danon spying on them. She immediately confronted them, declaring that she would beat them up. However, she was confused that Rit knew about her real identity, but she was enraged when Rit stated that she transformed herself into a fairy, knowing that her real terrifying appearance wouldn't endear Van. However, she calmed down when Rit asked to talk about love, declaring that she had someone she loved, similar to Lavender. Rit introduced herself as a former princess of Longevia, and Lavender got interested, thinking that she had a prince or a knight as a lover. But she was even more excited when she thought Rit had eloped with Red after hearing that they were living as commoners in Zoltan. They agreed that one must be willing to sacrifice for love. However, while Rit wanted to grow and change for the better with Red, Lavender wanted Van to stay the way he is, even if it led to his death. She was willing to follow after him, and she thought she couldn't wish for a better ending. Afterwards, Rit asked Lavender to convince Van to leave Zoltan, as it was also for his sake. Lavender thought she had a point. However, she still refused. Rit didn't try to convince her further. Lavender was glad about it, as she declared that she would have killed Rit if she insisted. They had a toast afterwards, but Lavender thought Rit was weird, as she wished they could have more peaceful chats in the future. Red approached Lubo right after he lost a bet on a race. He offered to help Lubo win his bet in exchange for sparing him some time to chat. Yarandrala was worried Red would lose, but Red was well prepared, as he had Mr. Crawley Wally's help to make sure they would win. Lubo was satisfied after winning big in the race, so he agreed to come to a restaurant with Red. And his mood got even better after trying the wine and dish that Yarandrala had served. Seeing this, Red finally decided to start discussing Van with him. Lubo thought Red had some complaints about Van's behavior, so he asked Red to overlook this as he was still a child. But he would be responsible for saving the world in the future. However, he was surprised when Red brought up the girl who had beaten up Van. Lubo immediately asked about her, but he thought it was ridiculous when Red explained that she was something left behind by ancient elves. However, he started to believe Red when Red showed him the ancient elven writings on the Ogre King's body. He explained that this Ogre King was highly intelligent and capable of wielding weapons, and it could be a biological weapon left behind by the ancient elves in Zoltan, so the girl who beat up Van could be the same. And the reports from the Thieves Guild support this theory. He also added that these biological weapons would crawl out of the ancient elven ruins to protect Zoltan if ever the demon army reached Zoltan. Lubo agreed to advise Van to leave Zoltan after hearing that it would be humanity's loss if one of Van or Rudy died. However, he was troubled, as Van had been disobedient to him recently. After this discussion, Albert visited Red's house with Esta, but Lavender was watching them. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoy this video, and please subscribe so you won't miss the next part. And just comment down any anime you want to see in this channel.